Which pigment turns maple leaves fiery red each autumn? Anthocyanin. Which pigment makes birch leaves golden yellow? Carotene. What process causes trees to seal off leaf stems, leading leaves to fall? Abscission. Which hemisphere has autumn from March to May? Southern Hemisphere. Which full moon helps farmers work late into the night? Harvest moon. Which constellation dominates crisp fall evenings? Pegasus. Which crop becomes Indian corn decor? Flint corn. Which meteor shower peaks around October 21? Orionids. Which butterfly travels to Mexico each fall? Monarch butterfly. Which goose travels in V-shaped skeins each fall? Canada goose. Which planet shines brightest at dusk in fall when at opposition? Jupiter. Which warm spell after first frost is called? Indian summer. Which spiky burr tree drops edible nuts in fall? American chestnut. Which Colorado tree turns golden in September? Quaking aspen. Which fungal network forms fairy rings after rain? Mycelium. Which wind sparks California fires in autumn? Santa Ana winds. Which small rodent enters torpor on chilly nights? Chipmunk. Which tree turns purple from leaf sugars? Sweet gum. Which berry shrub feeds migrating waxwings? Mountain ash. Which vegetable was carved before pumpkins? Turnip. Which bird makes longest non-stop migration? Bar-tailed godwit. Which gas makes pond fireworks from leaves? Methane. Which Aussie marsupial births joeys in early fall? Brush-tail possum. Which purple wildflower means farewell to summer? Aster. Which caterpillar predicts winter in folklore? Woolly bear. Which vitamin do humans absorb less of in fall? Vitamin D. Which amphibian burrows below frost lines? American toad. Which star cluster signaled sailing to Polynesians? Pleiades. Which mushroom is red with white spots? Amanita muscaria. Which cloud signals an approaching cold front? Cirrostratus. Which current steers autumn hurricanes northward? Gulf Stream. Japanese hunting crimson leaves is called momijigari. Which reptile incubates eggs in leaf piles? Common snapping turtle. Which term marks end of hurricane season? Hurricane season. Which desert shrub smells like creosote after rain? Chaparral. Which European deer bellows during the rut? Red deer. What daylight drop halts chlorophyll? Approximately 50%. Which snowbird arrives in fall? Dark-eyed junco. Fog trapped in a valley is called temperature inversion. Which beetle smells like pumpkin spice odors? Pentatomid stink bug. Which soup comforts chilly nights? Pumpkin bisque. Which treat coats apples in caramel? Caramel apple. Which German plum cake appears in autumn? Pflaumenkuchen. Which southern staple becomes pie in fall? Sweet potato. Which Mexican hot chocolate uses masa? Champurrado. Which Scottish stew cooks in a cauldron? Stovies. Which rice dish uses porcini? Porcini risotto. Which drink launched the fall craze in 2003? Pumpkin spice latte. Which Armenian pumpkin dish bakes stuffed? Gapama. Which French pastry horn holds chestnut puree? Corne de gazelle au marron.